Thank you for joining us today. Today we'll be talking about resilience in children and tips for parents. For those of you that are online, the questions that you'll have, you can enter into the chat box and we'll answer the questions at the end of the presentation. So I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Dr. Sue Profilet, and I work for Fort Bend County Behavioral Health Services as a child development specialist. My background is in teaching and research in child development, and I've taught at Texas Tech University, and I have taught in Ohio at a community college. I have two children that are young adults now. They're 21 and 22 years old, and as they were growing up, I always thought about how to build their resiliency. I guess I never really thought about it in terms of resiliency, but I always wanted them to do hard things and to work hard. And so now presenting on resiliency, it makes me think about how we can help children become more resilient, which will help them later on in their adult life. So today's presentation will be about resilience in children. We'll talk about what it is, why it's important, and some tips for parents to help their children become more resilient at any age. So I'm going to start out by asking the people that are here in person some questions. So what would you do if everything was easy? What if there was no adversity? If there was no difficult situations? How would that feel? Good. Sounds nice.
Free.
You what?
We would be worry free.
You would be worry free. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. You'd be like this koala bear just sleeping in the tree. Sounds nice, right? But what if we avoided challenges? What if you just never did anything that was hard? Would you be where you're at right now? No, right? You wouldn't be successful, right? You wouldn't get an education. You wouldn't go to school. Would you feel a sense of accomplishment? If everything was easy, would you accomplish anything?
Well, I mean, depending on who you're working with.
Yeah, so sometimes it sounds nice to have everything really easy, but then you probably wouldn't be where you're at right now if there were no difficult situations. There's a quote by Dale Carnegie that says, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed no hope at all. As we were putting together the presentation just over the last hour, I was telling our coworker, Shanna, that she had a lot of resilience because she just worked and worked and worked to get this presentation to work in person and online. So Shanna had a lot of resilience today putting this together. So we're very thankful for Shanna's help today. She worked really hard. I said she used up all of her resilience today. So we'll talk about the impact of adversity. So we can use adversity to increase our resilience. We can do hard things and have that adversity to help us. Even though we kind of want to avoid the adversity, it can help us to do hard things. And there's a quote that says, strength doesn't come from what you can do. Strength comes from overcoming the things that you thought that you couldn't do, right? So you think, I can't do this, right? But if you can do it and you can overcome it, you can build strength. So did any of you have adversity during the pandemic? So then it helped you to overcome things, right? It made things hard, made things difficult when the pandemic was going on and you couldn't go to the office and work and you couldn't see people that you wanted to see and you couldn't do things that you wanted to do. But that would probably help you build up your resilience because you kind of faced that adversity during the pandemic. I know my son wanted to go to Switzerland for a study abroad program when he was in college during the pandemic. So he would set all of his goals to go to Switzerland for study abroad. So he took French class in college. He never took French before, but he spent all of his time focused on going to Switzerland, learning how to speak French so that he could go to Switzerland. And then what happened during the pandemic? Canceled all the study abroad programs. Hi, welcome. So he had to, use his resilience because he said, well, now I know French, but I'm not going to Switzerland. And I told him, well, Switzerland will still be there. You could always go to Switzerland another time. It will help you to learn French, but he hasn't used his French since because he didn't go to Switzerland. But then he was okay. He bounced back very quickly and said that he would do other things instead. So children develop resilience because we all face adversity. Some children face more adversity than other children. We'll talk today a little bit about the types of adversity that children face. And so what would you say are some obstacles that children face when they're growing up at different ages? What are some things that they have to face that might be difficult? Changing schools, fitting in with their peers, natural disasters, having a hurricane, a flood. Other natural disasters are some obstacles that children face when they're young. Other things I include bullying. I was talking to somebody this morning about somebody that was a child that was getting bullied. Children get sick, move to a new neighborhood, have to make new friends. They might lose friends. Losing friends is difficult. Maybe the death of a loved one, losing a parent. Those are all things that children would have to face that would cause them adversity. And parents want to protect their children from everything, but they can't, right? You can't stop everything bad from happening to your children. So we'll talk about what you can do instead. So some children will develop more resilience than other children. Some children will really develop a lot of resilience. Other children will have a harder time with that. So we'll talk about what is resilience and then what we can do to help children. So resilience is defined as the ability to steer through serious life challenges and find ways to rise above adversity. So it's adapting to the situation, maybe going to a new school, making new friends. What can they do to adapt to the situation, remain strong, and bounce back? I was working with one of my clients who's an adult, and she said she's been through a lot. She's been through a very difficult situation in her life. And I told her, I said, you're being very resilient because you are really, working hard to get through this. And I said, you know about resilience? And she said, yeah, it means bounce back. And she said, I don't have any other choice. I have to bounce back right now because this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to work through the situation. So she was definitely showing resilience by bouncing back in a hard situation that she had even as an adult. So a lot of adults have to show that resilience all the time. So I have a few videos today. I'll show you the first one. It's about what is resilience.
Why do some people do well despite serious hardships? The signs of resilience can help us find answers. Why resilience is a good outcome of adversity. The extent to which we grow lessons and also deal with whatever comes in the road. So it's around. That's an investment that they're strongly. Some children face more obstacles and adversity than others. Growing up in a very socioeconomic disadvantaged community, going to schools that are exposed to violence in the neighborhood. But some children do well despite these significant. Resilience is the ability to self-capacity, honor, and talking about the kinds of abilities and skills and endeavors give people a sense of mastery and power. It's tempting to think about children as you're having this resilient body. Resilience is built on just as in protector of the brain is built on not just in the person, it's in the person in the environment.
Well, the same reason we pick up money, probably, and done this stuff. I think it's in the conversion, the bonus.
So resilience is something that is between the person and their environment, right? It's not just an individual thing. It's something that they learn from the environment. So some people say, well, children, they're just resilient, right? Children are resilient. They'll just bounce back. But they have to have there's some genetic component to it. And then there's also something that has to do with their environment so that people can help them become more resilient. So we'll talk about that. So children need to experience manageable stress. So they need to have some stress in their lives. Like at the beginning when we talked about, what if everything is easy? If everything is easy and everything is handed to somebody, then they're not going to become resilient. So they need the help of supportive adults and they need some positive stress. So not all stress is bad. Not all stress is toxic. Not all stress is very harmful. So they just need to learn how to cope with small things, and that will help them to cope with bigger things later on in their lives. So there's lots of opportunities in a child's everyday life to deal with manageable stress. And with the help of supportive adults, they can work through that stress. And then over time, they'll become better at dealing with the obstacles and overcome the stress that they have. So there could be small things that the children just have to start to learn how to do on their own without their parents doing it for them. So children who are resilient show that we found out that they are braver, they're more curious, and they're more adaptable. So if you never face hard times, you'll never learn to be brave, right? If nothing ever happens that's difficult, you're never going to have to face that and become more brave and learn how to face things. So you'll learn from your adversity. You'll learn how to do things like problem solve, and the children will become more adaptable because they've problem solved. So they'll quickly learn new skills and behaviors when they have a challenging situation. Here's another video. It's called How Resilience is Built. Oh, I passed it up.
Resilience with lots of magical quality. So they go.
Or of course, families and learning we have each of us show the power of the coaches, other adults in the community, who children have a chance to develop relationships, playing a critical support role. So it's not the responsibility. Stop.
Trauma, bring up
Something that all sophistication skills monitor yourself. The way we as a society is to help communities pay more attention to only it also help children like the supports we need. Take the scales, put them positive, negative.
He's saying we want to really understand what's necessary.
Resilience It's really in everyone's interest, and everyone needs the guidance.
So I like that they talked about how to regulate behavior, how to delay gratification. I like the delay gratification research studies that show that children eating the marshmallows. Have you guys ever seen the marshmallow studies? It's great. You can just look up marshmallow experiment. You can look it up on YouTube, and it's just the best. It's just the best video to watch because the kids are given a marshmallow, and if they don't eat it, I think they're about 3 or 4 years old. If they don't eat the marshmallow in 10 minutes, the experimenter will come back and give them a second marshmallow. So they'll get 2 marshmallows to eat. And so then they leave them alone with this marshmallow, and the kids just look at that marshmallow and they'll lick it or they'll take a little bite of it, and they're waiting and they just can't wait any longer to eat that marshmallow. And so that's delaying gratification. So I just think that's the best video. I'd always show it on the first day of class when I taught child development, because it just makes it look so interesting to study children, because how can they not eat that marshmallow? You know, if I brought marshmallows in here and I gave everybody a marshmallow, you guys would be like, yeah, it's a marshmallow. I don't care that much, right? But if you give a marshmallow to a 3-year-old, I think they've done it with gummy bears and other things like that, that the kids really want to eat, and they want to eat it right now. So if you have a child that age, you can test it on them and see if they can wait. And then you walk out of the room and come back and see if they've eaten it yet. And the kids that can delay gratification, they have done so many studies where they find out that they get higher SAT scores, they are less overweight, you know, all these different things, because they learn how to control things in their life and they learn how to plan ahead. And I think that has to do with resilience. When I was a kid, you know, if you think about like your trick or treat candy, I had my bucket of trick or treat candy, and my brother had his, and he could delay gratification, and he could say, I don't need to eat that Halloween candy. I can save it until whenever. And me, I just ate the Halloween candy as soon as I got it. And then I wanted my brother's because he still had some. And I was like, well, mine's all gone. And he would say, well, you're not going to eat mine. I'm saving mine. And I could not save my Halloween candy. So I don't know what that says about me later in life. You know, maybe I could have done better and had higher SAT scores or something like that. But so he was probably more resilient than me. He knew how to not eat that Halloween candy. And even now, if I have a piece of cake on my desk, you know, if there's something at work and you get a treat at work, I can't sit there with a piece of cake on my desk. Can you sit there with a piece of cake on your desk all day? My brother probably can. I cannot. So yeah, so I think the delay of gratification. The other thing I liked about the video was they talked about the toolbox, that you have that toolbox that can help you to become more resilient. So you have those skills about like planning ahead and all those different ideas about how to focus. So maybe I need my little toolbox of my skills to not eat the cake that's sitting on my desk, right? You have to think about something different. You know, you have to learn how to talk to yourself, I think, and figure things out. So, you know, take a break, get a drink of water. There's different things. So we'll talk about what parents can do to help their children to not eat the Halloween candy the first night. Use the mouse. Okay, so we'll talk about protective factors, and protective factors really helps people build resilience. So there's a combination of protective factors that are skills, resources, supports, or coping strategies that help people deal with stressful events. So the protective factors could be within the child, they could be within the family, they could be at school, they can be in the community. So there's a lot of different ways that children can get these protective factors that will help them to become more resilient. So within the child can have social skills. So certain children are more socially skillful than other children, right? Some children are awkward, they don't know how to talk to people. And then there's other kids that can just go out and make friends really easily and quickly, right? So having those social skills will help the child to become more resilient. Communication skills has to do with social skills as well, right? So how to talk to other people, how to talk to adults, how to resolve conflicts. Those are things that can help a child become more resilient. Another thing that is within the child is having a positive attitude, being optimistic versus, you know, having a negative attitude and being pessimistic all the time. And then the last one that's within the child is confidence. And so the child that has more confidence will be more resilient. And I think that confidence comes with more chances of being successful. So a child that has a lot of successes will feel good about themselves and they'll feel more confident. And then the research has found that the single most common factor to developing resilience is at least one stable and committed relationship with an adult. So it can be a parent, it could be a caregiver, it could be a coach, a teacher, and these relationships provide the responsiveness, the scaffolding, and protection that buffer children from developmental disruption. They also build capacities in the child. So these people that are taking care of the child or helping out the child help the child plan, monitor, and regulate their behavior. And once the child has that, they'll be better able to thrive in their other situations. I don't know what I did. Oops. So here's another video about the science of resilience, and they'll talk about protective factors.
Resilience is a result of a highly interactive environment. Usual characteristics which really saying difficult things. Positive. Even positive things that need it's like a scale. There are things on both sides of that scale, experiences of both bad things and good things. Our genes shape where the fulcrum is positioned. There are certain genes that make a child more sensitive to fulcrum survival. The fulcrum may start out in the one side, and the side, and that's going to make a big difference in terms of how much these subsequent ones affect. Science tells us that experience moves the fulcrum to better and more fulcrum. Even though we are born to respond differently to certain environments, what genes are actually doing are tuning up or tuning down expression of chemicals in the surface of the brain and circuitry in the body that govern our responses to stress and anxiety. When positive experiences accumulate, children learn coping skills that help them to manage stress. But fulcrum can slide, so the scale tilts toward positive outcomes more easily. That's what it is. There's always an adult. It's a key to providing a relationship that helps the buildings.
So they talk about the counterbalancing of difficult things, negative things, and positive things, like the scale. And they said that genes affect this. So the genes that somebody is born with can affect, they say, where that fulcrum, which I haven't used the word fulcrum in a long time, but that must be the base of the seesaw, right? The teeter-totter, whatever you want to call it. So the genes determine how we respond to those negative effects, the negative environment and the positive environment. So that fulcrum starts at a certain place, and then the child could get, a lot of negative things put on them or positive things. And so it's kind of like balancing out that scale, hopefully having more positives than negatives. Then there's also protective factors that are in the family. And the protective factors within the family include harmony and stability. Harmony is helping children get along with others and understanding that other people have different opinions than themselves, because they need to understand that they just can't get into something with everybody that doesn't agree with them. And stability is the consistency of family activities and routines. It provides predictability in the child's life if they have stability. Supportive parenting means that the parents have their best children's interest at heart, and they're present, they're helpful, and they're involved with their children. Supportive parenting includes encouraging them to do their best in school and hobbies, listening to their children without judgment, and teaching their children how to manage stress. And then family values as cultural values that pertain to the family's beliefs, functions, roles, and attitudes. so the children are learning about their family values from what their parents are doing and saying. The affection comes from the parents or the caregivers, and it has warmth, the parents show warmth, and it results in long-term positive outcomes. So showing that warmth and that responsiveness really helps the child in the future. And then the last is consistent discipline or consistency, where the children are getting the same things every time they do something, right? So it's really important to have consistency. So if the parent says something, they follow through with it. And the next time it happens, the same thing happens again. So children crave that predictability. Children crave that structure. So we'll talk about parenting to build resilience. So what can parents do with children of different ages? So I have 5 strategies there's some different strategies, but I have 5 that I brought today to think about how to build resilience in children. So the first one is have children do hard things. I even bought my children a book that was called Do Hard Things because they were kind of going into junior high, high school, and I feel like sometimes children don't always do things that are hard because it's easier to do things that are easy, right? And we think about teenagers sometimes. We think about teenagers not doing things that are hard because they don't want to. So I bought this book to try to encourage my kids to do hard things, and I really like the book. So things that they can do are problem solving when something is broken. Don't just fix it for the child. Talk to the child about what do we do about this now that it's broken, and try to get the child to think of some things to do. Encourage learning from mistakes. So it's okay to make mistakes, but how do we learn from our mistakes? We did that wrong this time. I remember saying to my son all the time, what are you going to do different next time? Think about what happened today and think about next time you do this, how can you do it differently? Be honest. Some things are hard, but we still do them, right? Even as adults, sometimes we have to do hard things. And so that's good to show the kids. And then encourage risk-taking through play. And I'll talk about that for a minute. So how does play contribute to resilience? One thing is that children learn how to manage their feelings and regulate their emotions during play. I always think about playing board games, right? Around age 4, I think children can start playing board games, and sometimes they don't know how to manage their feelings. Even sometimes older children or adults don't know how to manage their feelings, even when you're playing a game, right? So it's just a game, and children need to learn that, right? It's okay if you get mad. It's not okay if you throw all the pieces up in the air and break something, right? So it's okay if you get upset when you play the game and you lose, but you need to learn how to be a good sport when you lose. Playing contributes to resilience by pleasure and enjoyment. Just feeling good. It's really good for the child just to go out and just have some fun and enjoy themselves. And then also play builds response to stress and uncertainty, right? So they're just trying to figure things out. They're making sense of things. Mr. Rogers says play gives children a chance to practice what they're learning. So that maybe there's something going on at home and they can just use play and they can work through some of the situations. Play also helps children to be creative and use their imagination, which will help them think of different ways when it comes to problem solving and just learning how to deal with things. When children aren't pretending and learning how to play that way, they don't have those opportunities to be creative in those ways. Learning through play builds life skills. They also build relationships, attachment to people and places with friends and family. They build relationships with friends and with peers and with family members by playing. And then problem solving. They could learn that they could do things by themselves through play. The little girl in the picture is just playing. I don't know what she's playing, but she's very focused on her play. Looks like she'll probably learn something through that. And then children can also take risks in play. Taking risks in play gives the children the chance to test their limits and to discover new skills. So especially by playing outside, right? By playing outside, they're really finding out about what they can do, what they can't do. Can they climb? Can they run? Can they, pick up something? Is it okay if I pick up the stick and I play in the mulch, or jumping off the playground? Those are taking risks. The second thing that parents can do is model resilience. So if the parents can handle the resilience, if they can handle the adversity in their own lives and show their children that they're resilient, then the children can learn from that. So if the parents can handle situations, the children really learning by observing. They're learning from seeing what their parents do. So if the parents fall apart very easily, then the children are also going to learn how to fall apart easily and not know how to do something. If the parents connect to their family and friends, the children will realize that that's important too. If the parents make good choices, then hopefully the children will learn to make good choices because they're seeing that their parents do that. Instead of doing the whole do as I say, not as I do, that doesn't work, right? Because they're going to do what the parents do. They imitate their parents. If the parents contribute to the community, cope with stress effectively, and adapt to changing situations. And sometimes it's difficult for the parents, right? Because they might be going through some adversity themselves, right? So if they're going through the pandemic and struggling with things, then the kids are going to see the parents struggling with those things as well. And it's okay for them to see that it's hard, but then see how they handle it too. A third thing that parents can do is have some family time. Turn off the news, turn off the TV, have family game night, movie night, go to a museum, go take a bike ride, take a walk, play outside together, play basketball. Different families do different things for fun. And so that would build resilience by just having that time where they're off the phone and they're playing together. I have a family that I'm working with, and the little boy is 9, and he, every time I see them, I just have them play together. So they play board games. And I think before I started working with them, I don't think that the mother ever played with her child. And now they play every time they see me, they figure out what kind of game they're going to play. They decide on games. They didn't have any games where they were last week when I met with them. So I said, if you have paper and a pencil, you could play tic-tac-toe. They could play hangman. And so the little boy was very excited to play games, and he's competitive. He wanted to beat his mom at the games. So it doesn't matter what game it is. If just playing with his mom just made all the difference, even if it's for 15 or 20 minutes, just play and have some family time. And then routines are important. We talked about this a little bit, how the children really like to have some predictability, even making the unpredictable days predictable. Predictability is essential for children and teens, especially in the time of crisis. I think about that little boy that plays games with his mom when I see him, and we're talking about summer coming up, right? So, having routines in the summer as well as they do during the school year. I think it's a lot easier during the school year to have routines because you have to, have a morning routine, you have to have the bedtime routine, but it's summertime. So what does it matter? But if the mother is working or she's working from home in this case, and she has this little boy that has nothing to do, what's he going to do? So we talked about that, trying to have some plans for summertime to have that routine for the family. And then the last thing that parents can do is teach self-regulation. Teach the children how to calm themselves by themselves. And so there's different ways to teach self-regulation. So the first thing is thinking about how your body feels. How does your body feel right now? Are you hungry? Are you tense? Are you tired? Are you sad? Are you happy? Look at this little boy in the picture. Not really sure what's going on with him, but he's hanging upside down in the chair. Maybe he's just worn out from working on the computer. Or maybe he was, doing homeschool kindergarten. I don't really know what he was doing, but maybe he needs to get outside and run around a little bit. I think that's a good picture. And then there's other questions that we could think about for self-regulation. What strategies can I use to relax, to calm down, or to focus? Maybe think about taking a deep breath, right? When there's something that's challenging, you face something that's hard to do, take a deep breath. And you can teach children to do that, or maybe get a snack, maybe have a drink of water, take a break. And then they can think about how do they feel after using that strategy. Are they calmer after they did that? Are they more alert? Sometimes if I'm tired and I'm crabby and then I eat, I feel a lot better. I have a lot more energy after I eat. So some of those things will help. And then I have another video about parents helping their children to learn resilience through failure. And I think this is a little bit different approach. I think it's kind of the same thing by having kids do hard things sometimes they're not going to be successful. So thinking about how failure helps with resilience. This was on, I think, Good Morning America.
Power of failure. This has been one of the top stories all week in the New York Times. So many people are sharing it, and it really is resonating. So we brought in one of the chief advocates this morning, Rachel Simmons, who's back with us. She actually teaches a class at Smith College called Failing Well, and she's the author of the upcoming book, Enough as She Is. Please welcome Rachel. People sent me this article, and it goes beyond being on the college campus. I know there's a lot of stress there. What is it about failure?
Well, I think part of it is that the college thing is an issue. Kids are really worried about getting in, and it feels to them like if I don't do everything perfectly, it's all or nothing, I won't have a good life. So there's a lot of fear with kids. But I also think anybody on social media these days, and we know kids younger and younger are on it, they're seeing this unlimited stream of perfect images of their friends' lives. So they think, I can't be anything but perfect and flawless. On top of that, you have parents like me who are under pressure to think that our kids have to be spared of failure if we're going to be good parents. So all of those things are working together to keep kids out of practice when it comes to failure.
I love it that your little one is running around here.
My 5-year-old is indeed running around somewhere.
Why do you think it's crucial for parents to talk to their children about failure?
Because here's the thing, nobody can succeed if they're afraid of failure. You have to have that muscle. If you don't know how to learn with an unpredictable, how to learn to deal with an unpredictable situation, you're not going to have that muscle to cope with setbacks. Life is full of challenges, and the people who succeed can respond, they can be resourceful, and are not, blown away by every time something doesn't go their way.
Teach you that. I mean, just say it well. I mean, just yeah, so what do you say?
Well, what I try to teach them, first of all, everybody screws up. So I tell them about my failures. There have been many. And it's really important for kids to know that adults screw up too. Because if we don't tell them that, they won't come to us when they have a problem. And they also won't know how to do it. I also tell them that failing is something you have to practice. You're not just going to wake up one day and know how to do it.
Right, and we have a mutual friend, Julie Valley, and she has been a part of leadership. She has a great book that is out as well, as we talked about how we all have butterflies, but just get them a flying formation.
Yeah.
You realize that you're not alone in having this fear.
I always tell my students that being nervous means that you care. That means you
Yeah.
care. And also I say to them, and I think every parent should ask their child this question, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Because kids particularly, they're really good at catastrophizing. Oh, my life is over if this doesn't go my way. You tell them actually what's the worst that could happen and can you deal with that? And most of the time kids say, I sure can.
Give 3 tips to parents to help them
All
begin.
right, so first of all, failure is a skill. Skills are like muscles. You got to flex them often. You don't go to the gym and lift 50 pounds the first time. You don't throw your kid into the deep end and have them experience an epic fail. They have to go bit by bit. So let them fail often in ways that are manageable. Secondly, monitor yourself in terms as a parent. How do you respond to your kid's failure? When our kids are learning to walk, I would say this, when your kid is learning to walk, they fall on their face. The first thing they do is they look at you. Every parent is nodding it's true because they want to know, is this okay? And if you go, they freak out. But if you say, it's cool, you're good, they keep on going. That doesn't stop. That continues throughout their lives. They're always going to look at you. So monitor yourself. And then finally, another parent for you, parent tip, handle the way you deal with failure well. So if you lose your keys and walk around saying I'm an idiot, that's going to teach your kids to do the same. Be kind to yourself when you make a mistake in front of your child.
Because they're always watching, and this is a lesson to learn early because it really does carry on.
100%, 100%.
I really appreciate my parents saying they didn't want to catch me when I fell. They wanted to be there to pick me up when I did. It's about taking risks.
That's right, and doing it together and not doing it for your child, but with your child.
Your little one, where is she?
Right over there.
Oh, can you do? See there? Oh. We often talk about success, and this is part of it. What your little girl to be successful, and you have to learn about failure to be.
And you know what I said to her? If I screw up, I'm going to be okay. We're going to deal with it. If I fail on Good Morning America, we're all going to move on. That's fine.
Comes out in the article, putting all week.
So do some kids never fail? Until when? When is the first time people fail, maybe? When's the first time you failed something? Can you remember?
and we have each stages of our life, we fail in something. Doesn't matter what we do, you know.
But for some people, it's easy, right? Or their parents do it for them. So if your parents fix everything, then maybe you don't have as many failures because somebody came along and did it for you or helped you through everything.
No, I don't think, well, I mean, the way I brought up was different, but the way Mike brought my kids up is that, if I tell them that they can't do something and they go out and do it, they suffer the consequences.
Okay.
And I can't do anything. I mean, you know, I mean, they, you know, if they fail a test or they don't study, they don't put in their work, they get an F. You know, if their decision is not to do it, I can't fix them. But what I can fix is if they need help, they coping with something, I can get them classes, I can spend more time with them, I can do that kind of stuff.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. You can't fix it if they fail and then they have to suffer the consequences. Yeah. Anything else? What about people that it's always easy, like all through high school? Some people never fail, right? Some people never get an F, right?
It's like, you don't know until like you actually do, like, or until somebody told you like that you fail and you can actually, you know, feel it, because, you know, you're allowed to, you know, actually fail, you know, because you just, if you've not experienced it, you just don't know what it's like, you know? So you just go through life and just kind of, you don't know, you find things easier for you, and then like when you have to deal with stuff that's hard, you know, you kind of, you know, it's just like really hard for you, you know, you don't handle it as easy as somebody who has dealt with problems all the time. And I see that a lot with a lot of the people that I've worked with, you know, just kind of, you know, some people just kind of like go ahead. They're just like, okay, they have a good attitude about things, and it's like, okay, it's fine, you know. And I'm like, dang, you've been through a lot of stuff, and you just dealing with it, and you just like, you know. And some people, it's just something minor, and it's like, oh, I just can't, you know. And it's like, it's just because they haven't had a chance to fail at things, and you know, I think for me sometimes I kind of was the same way. I didn't really fail at anything until I was an adult, you know, and had to fail at something. I don't even remember what it was, but you know, it was like the worst thing ever. It's like my life was over, and you know, it was terrible.
Right.
And you know, I didn't handle it well. And so, and other people look at me like, what's wrong with you?
Right. Some people avoid failing, right? So maybe you don't do the hard things then. If that's too
Right.
hard, then I'm not going to do it because I don't want to fail at it. I don't want to
Right.
look bad. So I'm just going to do the easy things. Right. Some people take that way out and then they're never facing it. And then they never know what's going to come up next. That's going to be something hard, right? You can't avoid all the hard things that are difficult, right? So yeah, I think some people are really good at it. They've had a lot of failures or they had a lot of adversity. And for some reason, they're just so persistent, you know, and they just work through everything. And then some people just fall apart so easily, right? And I think it's around that time, like high school and college, when people sometimes have their first time that they really do poorly on a test or something like that, right? Like I remember getting a D in calculus and yeah, and like my life was over because I got a D in calculus. You know how much it's affected me since? Nobody even knows. Does anybody here know that I got a D in calculus? Nobody cares, right? So when I talk to young people, I'll say, you know, college is hard and you might not get straight A's in college. And I got a 5-hour D and it's the first grade on my transcripts. So everything else was A's and B's, but there's a 5-hour D that just shows up first because you know what? Did I know how to study when I went to college? No, I never failed anything. My high school was super easy. And so everything was like fine. I hardly did any homework in high school. I didn't know how to study. Other people did. Other people got to college and they were prepared. And they knew how to study. And I would look at them like, what are you doing? And they were studying. I didn't know how to do that. So no wonder why I got the 5-hour D in calculus, right? I just did not know how to study for that, right? So then, yeah, so then I fell apart, right? And I, you know, it was the end of the world. and then you get through that somehow, and then, don't take any more hard math classes, kind of avoid that also, but then, take other things that I think would be doable. And then later on, realize nobody tells you that, when you're in your 50s, that nobody's going to care about, nobody in my 30s, 40s, or 20s, nobody has ever said, you got a 5-hour doing calculus, you're not going to be able to get this job. Or you're not, like, it has not affected me at all. But when in that moment, it really affected me, right? So yeah, and so it's good to know those things, I think, because a lot of times you think that it's just the end of the world, right? Like you're a failure. You feel like a failure, and then you have to get through it. Some people can bounce back a lot more quickly, other people have to struggle through things, and it's too bad. But maybe if there are children and they had some failures, then maybe they wouldn't struggle so much when they're an adult. What do you think? Any questions? Well, the last slide is just a little, sure. Get the last slide. Oh, there it is. The people who accomplish the most and achieve the greatest fulfillment in life are those who embrace fear, stress, and even pain, right? Isn't it motivating to see somebody who's like inspirational, right? You see somebody, one time I saw somebody that was doing yoga and they only had one leg, and I thought, wow, here I am. I can't even barely do yoga. And this person is doing it with one leg, right? Like, how hard would that be? So you think about that as, very inspirational to see people that are overcoming some kind of obstacle and just doing it so well. And that, that people like me can't even barely get to yoga class. Well, this person got there somehow and is, fighting through it. So I think it just makes you think about yourself and how to be resilient yourself. And if you have children or you work with children, to teach them the same. So any questions on the online? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for listening. Is it awesome?
I never even thought about what I feel when I was a kid.